Coming up on KPBS Evening Edition, advocates for San Diego's poor say they are not surprised to learn that most calls to the county's food stamp phone line are never answered.
And the president of San Diego's City Council stops a major ballot measure from moving forward. KPBS Evening Edition starts now.
Hello, thanks for joining us. I'm Joanne Ferrian.
And I'm Dwayne Brown. Despite an effort to get an alternative proposal on the ballot, San Diego voters will only see one pension reform measure in June. KPBS Metro reporter Katie Orr has been following this story. She joins us to explain what happened to the alternative plan. Katie, what will voters actually see in June, and which measure won't make the ballot?
Dwayne, voters will weigh in on a proposal that would eliminate city pensions for most new hires and replace them with a 401k. It would also freeze the base pay of current employees for 5 years. The measure that will not be on the ballot would also have frozen base pay, but instead of eliminating pensions, it would have capped them. Councilmember David Alvarez had been proposing that.
And, Katie, who made the call to keep that measure off the ballot?
Well, Council President Tony Young has the power to set the agenda for the council, and he says he won't docket the item. That means that the council cannot take a vote to put it on the June ballot. Young says that the council would have had to take action by March 9th, and he says that that date is just too soon.
The 3 weeks that was given us when it comes to this proposal to decide to put on the ballot is just not enough time to, I think, to really make a good policy decision.
Young says that the city has made hasty decisions in the past that have led to bad policy, and he says he doesn't want to see that happen again.
And what does this mean for the alternate proposal?
Well, it means for right now it's likely dead. 3 council members could request that it be docketed, but they still need 5 votes to get it on the June ballot, and it doesn't appear that they have those. Tony Young says that he may docket it in the future, but it wouldn't be in time for the June election.
Okay, KPBS Metro reporter Katie Orr.
San Diego residents could be in for another jump in their water rates. Our partner, Investigative News Source, has confirmed that a city council committee will discuss possible increases in the next 30 days. Supporters say the money is needed for more system upgrades, but a citizens committee and Councilman Carl DeMaio want better accounting of money raised by previous rate increases. In the past 7 years, customers have seen their water rates increase by 82 to 111%. More San Diegans can afford to buy a single-family home. The California Association of Realtors has put out its quarterly Housing Affordability Index, measuring the percentage of households that can afford to buy a median-priced single-family home. That number was 45% in the last quarter of 2011, up 5 points from the same time in 2010. A first-time buyer with a 20% down payment would need to earn just over $73,000 a year to qualify for a median-priced home.
California is getting a huge chunk of the $25 billion mortgage settlement deal with 5 of the nation's largest banks. State Attorney General Kamala Harris announced today California will join 49 states in the landmark agreement. KPBS business reporter Eric Anderson joins us from the News Center. What did California get from this settlement, Eric?
Well, they got about $18 billion, which is a big chunk. Almost 70% of the money that's going to be paid out will be coming to homeowners and people who are foreclosed on here in the state of California. That was the big sticking point for Kamala Harris. She said that she walked away from the talks for months because California's share wasn't going to be large enough.
Now, the banks include heavyweights like Bank of America, Wells Fargo, Citigroup. What did they actually get out of this deal?
Well, they, including Ally Financial and J.P. Morgan Chase, got a promise that the states are not going to go after them individually for wrongdoing over this robo-signing scandal. That's where banks processed a lot of foreclosure paperwork without actually doing due diligence on that paperwork. Many times they were just writing signatures onto those pieces of paper, and people were losing their homes without proper review. And the banks will not have to face any more civil penalties in that arena.
Interesting. So how will homeowners and the folks who lost homes to foreclosure benefit from this?
Well, the people who did lose homes to foreclosure between the years of 2008 and 2011 are going to get a lump sum check, probably somewhere in the neighborhood of $1,800 to $2,000. And the people who are still in their homes but on the verge of being on foreclosure and they're mortgage is now worth more than what their property is worth, they're going to get some relief in the form of a principal reduction. That's the biggest chunk of the settlement. $12 billion be used to write down loans for homeowners who are still in their homes. And then there will be a couple of other things that will happen as well. People will be able to refinance even though they may be underwater, and et cetera.
KPBS business reporter Eric Anderson.
The Marine Corps is working to defuse a controversy over another internet image of its troops. This one showing a group of snipers posing in front of a flag with a logo that looks like the symbol of the Nazi SS. The picture was taken in Afghanistan in 2010. The Military Religious Freedom Foundation is calling for an investigation. The Marine Corps says it has already investigated and found the SS was intended to mean scout snipers. But officials say the logo was still unacceptable.
The fight to save the cross on Mount Soledad in La Jolla is being appealed to the U.S. Supreme Court after a ruling by the Ninth Circuit Court last year declared the cross unconstitutional. People on both sides of the issue showed up to voice their concerns and opinions today. The fight over this 29-foot Latin cross has been going on for 22 years in San Diego. Now it's headed to the highest court in the land. Kelly Shackelford is a First Amendment rights lawyer representing the Mount Soledad Memorial Association.
In polling, 93% of the country says leave the veterans' memorials alone. We don't care if there's religious symbols or not, leave them alone.
But he says if they don't get the Ninth Circuit Court ruling overturned,
none of that's going to matter because they're going to literally begin tearing down veterans' memorials across the country. And there are thousands and thousands of these memorials that have religious symbols, crosses, and stars of David.
About 24 protesters held signs denouncing the cross. George Little says he's an atheist whose grandfather was a veteran of war.
My issue is the cross. I think that it's very clear that it's a Christian symbol, and I just don't believe that that there should be any recognition of religion on federal property.
Thomas Permoy is an atheist and active duty sailor. He says his protest has nothing to do with paying tribute to veterans.
The veterans need to be recognized, and that's something that doesn't happen a lot in America. But with that cross, it singles people out, and I think there are several people of different faith persuasions or non-faith persuasions that are, insulted by it.
But retired Army Colonel David Epstein, whose picture is one of the many displayed on this memorial site, disagrees.
Come on, guys, get a life. That's my take on it. The cross isn't hurting anybody. The Constitution says there shall be no establishment of an official religion, nor any religious test for the holding of public office. This cross does not violate either one of those precepts.
Now, the Supreme Court already overturned a similar case against a cross in the Mojave Desert. That cross was stolen after the decision and has not been replaced yet. We should know by summer if the court decides to take up the Mount Soledad case. As we told you yesterday, there's some startling news about food stamps in San Diego County. A phone network to help folks apply for the benefit is actually hanging up on them most of the time. Joanne has the latest on the story with her guests at the Evening Edition Roundtable.
UT San Diego obtained a draft report commissioned by the county assessing its food stamp phone line. According to the report by Intelligy, 5 out of 6 calls are dropped, and those that do make it through wait an average of 30 minutes to speak to someone. The report goes on to say 350,000 calls a month are not answered because the Health and Human Services Agency has not hired enough people. Joining me in studio are Bill Oswald, Chair of the Caring Council, and Joni Halpern, Director of Supportive Parents Information Network. Both groups work to support low-income families. Thank you both for being here.
Thank you for having us.
Bill Oswald, I want to begin with you. Was there anything that surprised you in this report in terms of the performance of the county?
Not at all. No, actually, I was pleased to see that they actually identified some of the problems we've been talking about for the past 5 years.
Let's talk about some of those problems. So basically, people going to apply for food stamps using this phone line, not getting through.
Yeah, not just trying anybody who's got a case. I mean, if I apply for food stamps and I don't hear in 2 weeks and I'm told to call this line, if I'm one of the 48% who get through, I have to stay on the phone for 30 minutes, and then I'm not sure they can help me anyway. when I get there. So they've really created almost an impossible scenario for anyone to get assistance with their cases.
Now, Joni, you've been working with people for a number of years to try and navigate through this system. Is this the story that you hear often?
Oh, absolutely. Without question. It's all I hear. And I think we've tried to say to the county, even before they instituted this nutrition security plan, that two of its components were problematic. One was the business process reengineering that assigned no caseworker to an outcome for a case and left everything on a task-based group system. And secondly, the access center, which was even back then in 2008 and 9 a problem. And neither of those two things has been looked at until this Intelligy report.
Now, you actually go down to these offices with people, don't you?
Yes, I do.
And what's that experience like?
Horrible. It's not horrible because people are mean. It's horrible because it takes sometimes an hour and a half to 2 hours to get into the building, just into the building. And then you sit there for 2 or 3 hours trying to get to the right person who can help you. And then you come back the next day because you didn't get everything done. And you're back there 2, 3, sometimes 4 times. You can talk to people in the lines and they'll tell you, I don't call Access anymore because I never get help, so I have to come down here.
I want to share some numbers with the people at home, numbers that I know both of you are very familiar with in terms of the people who are enrolled in the food stamp program. Now, we know back in 2006, 83,000 people in San Diego County were enrolled. That number, as of last year, did grow to 236,000 people. But now it's important to note, though, our participation rate has not necessarily grown. There is a national organization that evaluates this. We are still last. This is according to a national survey of 22 large cities. So, Bill, is it just that we're seeing numbers go up because demand has gone up, or is the county actually getting better at administering this program?
Well, our numbers indicate the county is keeping up with demand, but not lowering their or increasing their participation rate. And we've sort of clocked it using unemployment as an indicator of demand. And if you use that, what you see over the time is that the lines are almost identical, which would indicate that, yes, they are keeping up with demand, but the fact that there's about 60% of the people who are eligible not getting it, that pool is remaining outside the system.
Because we have a 40% participation rate. In other words, about 40% of the people who are eligible actually get this benefit. So I want to play a clip for our audience. We spoke with Supervisor Ron Roberts, who's actually chair of the County Board of Supervisors, earlier this week about the food stamp program. I asked him about the increase in numbers and about the county's low national ranking, and here's what he said.
We have changed dramatically how we can qualify people, the number of places, how we can reach them. And we're seeing the results. We've added a lot of new employees to make this happen. And we've still got a lot of things that we need to do. So we're not at the end, but I think we're clearly going in the right direction. People who are eligible should have an opportunity, and we would like to see them avail themselves.
Joni, I want to get your reaction to that clip.
I think it's a good intention. I think it's great that they've increased their numbers. I think that even if we take the Intelligy report as the best description of what has to happen next, it's going to take an infusion of money for staffing and technology and a whole bunch of other changes that I'm not sure that the Board of Supervisors has committed itself to.
I'm glad you bring up money because KPBS actually looked at budgets going back several years in terms of the County Board of Supervisors and what they spend their money on. And we did see a trend that they spent the budget for protection for public safety increased while the Health and Human Services budget continually decreased. Is this a matter of public will, actually having politicians putting their money, I'll use the cliche, where their mouth is, and spending more money on Health and Human Services to hire more people?
It's clearly, I mean, it all ends as a political issue, and it's a budgetary issue, and the Board of Supervisors has been clear that they have no particular interest in serving this interest. There was a fascinating article in the Voice of San Diego maybe a year ago. I think it was Kelly Bennett, I think, did it, where she interviewed each of the 5 supervisors, and they made it clear that this is very low on their priority. And part of it's related to that issue of that the county operates. Nick Macchione uses the word program integrity. For us, that means we assume everybody who's applying is cheating until they prove otherwise. And so the whole fraud system that they have is a major deterrent. And so they spend a lot of money doing that which could be used to improve their services.
And we will have an opportunity to actually ask Nick Machione about that. He is the head of the county's Health and Human Services Agency, and he will be on tomorrow's program as well. I want to thank you, Bill Oswald and Joni Halpern, for both being here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
San Diego Congressman Brian Bilbray is getting help from a Republican committee for his re-election campaign. The National Republican Congressional Committee says it will put extra resources toward the Bilbray campaign. His seat is now considered a swing seat after redistricting. Bilbray is also being targeted by the California Democrats who hold their state convention in San Diego this weekend. They say Bilbray's district is key to winning control of the U.S. House. And a Democratic phone bank will be starting to make anti-Bilbray calls tonight. And in a moment, one woman's gut-wrenching story of childhood abuse and the man who seemed to offer an escape.
Like a father figure. He would talk to me and take me out and like give me all these lavish gifts or do all these things for me and stuff.
But that man led her into prostitution before she killed him. This is KPBS Evening Edition.
Tonight on KPBS at 8, remember Alpine's Dinosaur Land, the USS San Diego, and a Valentine's Day story of love in the days of Old Town on Ken Kramer's About San Diego. Then at 8:30, visit Rancho La Puerta and see what it's like to be pampered at the world-renowned spa in Tecate on Crossing South. And at 9, the body of a young woman is discovered in a church, which leads to some unholy doings on Inspector George Gently. That's tonight on KPBS.
After the Civil War, black Southerners were no longer slaves, but they were not yet free.
The sheriff could sell free black people to corporations and coal mines.
For 80 years, thousands of blacks were forced to labor against their will.
He said, if I don't go to work, he'll put me in the river down there.
One of America's most shameful chapters, slavery by another name.
Slavery by Another Name, Monday at 9 on KPBS. KPBS Evening Edition is made possible by Joan and Irwin Jacobs and by
Websites have sprouted up on the internet in support of a 34-year-old woman. She spent more than half of her life in a California prison for killing her pimp. KPBS investigative reporter Meetha Sharma tells us how she ended up behind bars.
One of the first things Sarah Cruzen did when she entered prison at 16 was look up the words moral and scruples. The judge in her murder trial had told her she had none.
I had no clue what morals were, and I had no clue what scruples meant.
Her defenders ask, how could she? Cruzen grew up amid stress and chaos. Her mother admitted bashing Cruzen's head on the floor. She was placed in foster care for a time after bruises were discovered. Cruzen was molested for the first time at age 5 by her mom's boyfriend. Successive boyfriends did the same, court documents show. In this 5-year-old YouTube clip from the Free Sarah Cruzen Facebook group, Cruzen describes the one bright spot in her life.
In school, I excelled. I was on the honor roll, and the principal's honor roll, and I was like an overachiever. I ran track, I ran for student body president.
But her love for school could not save her. Her mother kicked her out when she was 11. Cruzen was hospitalized for attempted suicide. That's also when a well-known pimp, George Gilbert Howard, or Gigi, befriended her.
And he was like a father figure. He would talk to me and take me out and like give me all these lavish gifts or do all these things for me and stuff.
At 13, Cruzen was raped on school grounds by 3 neighborhood boys. Then Gigi forced Cruzen into prostitution.
He had sex with me when I was 13, and he's a very, he uses his manhood to hurt.
She went to live with her grandmother in San Diego when she was 15. At 16, she began seeing a boy whose ex-con uncle ordered her to kill Gigi. Ann Rogan of San Diego is Sarah Cruzen's aunt. She explains what happened next.
And this guy said to her, well, I want you to get Gigi's money, and I want you to shoot him, and if you don't do this, I'm going to kill your mother. And I believe he threatened her boyfriend, the juvenile at the time.
Cruzen went to a motel room in Riverside with Gigi. Her aunt said once inside the room, her niece felt trapped and desperate.
Apparently, when he started to pull out a sex toy, which he had used on her previously, which apparently was painful. I mean, because he raped her at 13. And that is when he was shot. There was a fear that just gripped her of all the abuse, and that's when she shot him.
That is not the end of Sarah Cruzen's story. Amitha Sharma joins me now. Amitha, what happens next?
So what happened next in Sarah Cruzen's story, her defenders say basically ensured that she would spend the rest of her life behind bars. She was charged with murder, put on trial at the age of 16, and the prosecution called 7 witnesses. The defense, Sarah Cruzen's lawyer, David Gunn, who is now a sitting judge in Riverside, didn't call one expert to the stand to talk about the effect of Sarah's dismal childhood or the effect of her forced prostitution by the man she killed and who also raped her at the age of 13, to talk about the effect that that might have had on her life. In fact, the only person her defense lawyer put on the stand was Sarah herself. And her appeals lawyers say now that at the time she was too depressed, she was too medicated, and not skilled enough to joust with the prosecutors in this case. So the jury convicted her, and they sentenced her. She was sentenced to life without without the possibility of parole.
But that's changed, hasn't it? Hasn't her sentence been reduced?
On his way out, Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger, a couple of years ago, reduced her sentence to 25 years to life with the possibility of parole.
So, Amitha, tell us, how is Sarah now?
Sarah, right now, she's earned a bachelor's degree in science while in prison. She lives in the honor dorm. She is remorseful about what she did.
I definitely know I deserve punishment. I mean, you don't just take somebody's life and think that it's okay. I believe that I could set a positive example. I'm very determined to show that no matter what you've done or where you've come from or what you've experienced in life, it's up to you to change.
And so that's what she wants to do. She does want a shot at freedom. There is an effort to get her clemency. Her case is pending before the California Supreme Court. Her lawyers say that they either want Sarah to get a new trial or they want her to be granted full clemency.
Okay, Amitha Sharma, you'll have to keep us updated on this story. Thank you.
I'm Judy Woodruff on the next News Hour. Margaret Warner's second report on Europe's debt crisis. Tomorrow, the debate in Germany over whether and how to help its ailing neighbors. That's Thursday on the PBS News Hour.
The American people have named PBS the most trusted source of news
and public affairs
for the 8th year in a row.
Trust.
The American people have spoken.
Thank you.
A man was murdered overnight on Chicago's South Side.
The violence interrupters have one goal in mind: to save the life. Most of the violence interrupters come from the hierarchy in some of these gangs.
My best friend got killed. I could get shot tomorrow. How can you help me right now?
This is unacceptable for me to be holding this young man's obituary. Stop.
We're trying to stop the violence. That's it, and that's all.
Watch a special 2-hour Frontline, Tuesday at 9 on KPBS.
Starting tomorrow, the San Diego Natural History Museum will offer an up-close look at items recovered from the wreckage of the Titanic. The exhibit features 200 items ranging from hairpins to books and plates. This video was provided by the organizers of the event. There are also recreations of first and third class cabins and an iceberg wall that gives you an idea how cold the water was when the ship sank 100 years ago. The exhibition runs through September 9th. By the way, the Natural History Museum is a supporter of KPBS.
Tonight in our public square, your comments on the Plaza de Panama project. So many of you had something to say after last night's interview regarding a plan to remove traffic from Balboa Park. I asked whether you had enough information about all the options proposed. Stephen wrote, "Why do people have to make simple issues so complicated? Put up a gate. No access, no problem. A gate at the Laurel Street Bridge would allow pedestrian access and keep cars out." Well, Lucas says the opposition to the Jacobs plan is very short-sighted. While I would like to see more schematics, I believe a new bridge bypassing the quadrangle and plaza could be not only a bypass to unsightly and unsafe traffic, but if done right, could also be an aesthetic addition to the park. Well, don't be a stranger. Send me an email. Let us know if we're asking the right questions and who you would like to see at the round table. Write to me, jferrian@kpbs.org. I may use some of your comments on air. And, of course, you can always follow us on Twitter or like us on Facebook. And now let's go back to the news desk where Dwayne has a recap of tonight's top stories.
A new proposal for pension reform won't make it to the ballot. Councilman David Alvarez was behind the proposal. It would have capped pensions at just under $100,000 a year. Council President Tony Young says there isn't enough time to get the Alvarez proposal on the June ballot, so there will be only one pension reform measure this summer. The Mount Soledad Cross debate is headed for the U.S. Supreme Court. Supporters of the cross rallied today, and so did folks who want it removed. And California is getting a huge chunk of a settlement with the nation's top mortgage lender. $18 billion out of $25 billion deal, but it's already being criticized by some consumer advocates who say it doesn't do enough for people underwater with their home loans. You can watch and comment on any of the stories you saw tonight on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Thank you so much for joining us. You have a great night. Looks like a wind advisory is up for the beaches. We leave you with a look at the forecast.